the 24th of March 2022. I'm Dana Durnford. I hope you're doing well tonight. I hang my shingle at the Nuclear Proctologist.org, and if you're a pro-nuclear and you're stupid, which means you're a pro-nuclear, you can call in at 709-589-4406 and challenge any of my assertions. And if you're a friend, you can call me anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year if you need clarifications. That's what I'm here for, so you can finally relax and get some friggin' answers. And probably a little too late down the rabbit's path, but we're going to do the best we can. Don't be eating food from Fukushima. Rule number 1, don't eat shit from Japan. Don't do it. The worms are excreting 1.4 million atomic decays per kilogram. And that's all a worm does is shit, right? So let's get it on. We got earthquakes and cover-ups and perpetual lies, and we are trying to break that cycle. The Geiger counter is still charging. We'll try to get it up and running in like a half an hour. Oops, left the battery in. You can actually buy a plug that looks like a battery, fits in your battery compartment. You can plug it into the wall. And I should order, they're cheap. I should order one of them in at some point. I'm trying to use like angles more, but it typically takes 5 people to operate the equipment that I got. 155 schools in Taiwan damaged. It was actually over 200 from the earthquake that had 150 aftershocks. And you seen beginning of last night's video? Taiwan knows how to do an earthquake. They're really good at it. It not only wrecked a bunch of schools, a couple of hundred, it also done damage to shops and bridges. And one thing I noticed when I was watching the videos were the cars in the background. Each time I seen cars, they were that's an earthquake. You can see Buddy trying to keep his balance. I tend to not to use the videos because copyrights. And if you're live streaming and use copyright, it'll stop your live stream on you. Even though sometimes I indulge, right? So we have an earthquake also in Japan. Japan's scale is the same as Taiwan. They use a 1 to 7 scale. Very sneaky, very, very dirty trick to do. So we'll go through this again 3 nights in a row. Japan's earthquake loss is likely to go into the billions. Well, today they came out and said, and we'll cover this in a bit, to cost insurers between $2 billion and $4 billion. So we're going to cover Taiwan first, Japanese, more Taiwan. I got a couple of videos coming up in 1 minute or so from today. The maps updates 4 times a day. So we're worried that Fukushima is having radioactive plumes is coming our way. And we have good reason to worry about this, and you do too. Even if you're pro-nuclear and pathetic, you still have to worry about the radiation, which is the same thing as global warming, by the way. This is a 20-day model of fallout from Japan, covering the entire planet. This is why you're not cleaning your windshields as much as you used to for insects. So this was today. We picked up a tap and die set, And Obsolete Optics had donated to buy that 120, so I went and picked it up. Okay, so Obsolete Optics bought us the tap and die set. And that thing is actually awesome. I opened it up and I got a whole bunch of jobs I'm going to start tomorrow and Saturday. Take Sunday off, and then I'll be working out in the shed all weekend. Because we also got the compressor, because James Lucid donated $250 towards it. So the compressor I was going to buy is sold, and we got a new one. It's $402. So it was on sale, and so I'm probably better off anyway. It's a 20 gallon. It's a 20 gallon. And we just picked it up. And so that was James Lucid donated $250. Yeah. So wow. So all I can say is wow. And we'll talk about it at the end of the night. Also, if nobody ever is familiar with this, Seafoam, you should add about half a can of that to every gas tank you do. Super, it pays for itself. Right, and so it'll quiet down your car right away and lubricate the injectors right away. Start getting rid of all the carbon. And you'll notice an increase in horsepower every time you use it in your tanks. Engine runs way smoother, way quieter. It's right away too. It's kind of like, it's got a number of properties to it. And you should use it in your lawnmowers and snow blowers and generators, any gas engine whatsoever. And you can use it for other applications. You just got to read the, it's called Seafoam. Really, you shouldn't fill your tank up without putting at least a quarter or a half a can. I got a big tank, so I'm using half a can. But you'll save the money. You'll actually save. You'll get way better mileage. It's really, it actually really works. Everything I use it on works. Just even the quad. Really, you know how loud and obnoxious the quads will get. That thing just quieted right down. I wouldn't dream of using it without Seafoam. It's just a good practice, right? Keeps all the carbon from the build-up inside your engine. If you use it all the time, you'll just clean that engine. It'll be gorgeous. And so that was a huge deal. We'll talk about that coming up. Let's get into the show. I'm just thrilled we got the final major pieces together. Just like that, right out of the blue, just literally shocked me. We'll talk about that tonight later. 155 schools damaged, came out just before we went live in Taiwan. But also about 20 schools in another area, a bunch of schools in another area. So roughly 200 schools were damaged. So the earthquake ran around looking for schools. So something else must have got damaged besides. If 200 schools got damaged, it's not like they built all the schools looking for, where's the fault line here in Taiwan? Why? Because we're going to build a school, right? We don't live in that world, I hope. Maybe we do. Who knows? Nuclear is pretty twisted and disgusting. It's disgusting. To the point, nuclear is so disgusting that now we call this, whatever, we call it the Nuclear Scumbag Show. There's really, there's other names you can use, but Google might not let us use the name. But I think we can all agree what a scumbag actually is. And I'm being polite, so magnitude 5.3 earthquake hit today again. Now they had 150 aftershocks. This is one of them. So the whole country shaking constantly for 150 aftershocks. The scale you're looking at is on a 1 to 7 scale. So imagine going on a dirt road for like 4 or 5 days in a row. That's what your country is doing. It's like being on a dirt road for 4 or 5 days. The epicenter of the tremor, also known as the earthquake in normal world, is about 63 kilometers south-southwest of County Hall. It doesn't tell you if it was at sea. That particular one was at sea or on land. Looks like that one was on land, 19.6 kilometers deep. These are really shallow quakes, which means you get way more crap movement. Earthquake, biggest intensity level, which Taiwan is using because the nuclear industry is scumbags no matter where you go, right? Is using the 1 to 7 scale, forced the country, enslaved the country to use nuclear lies and propaganda, which gauges the actual effect of a quake, reaches 4 in Japanese or Taiwan's 7 terror intensity scale. It was likely an aftershock of the 6.6 magnitude. 6.6 magnitude is different from a 6. It's not, though. Because if you take the 7 scale and scale it up to 10, you got to multiply their scale by 1.43, 1.428 or something, which is 1.43, right? In order to get the Richter scale or the magnitude scale, and that the most of the world uses, because if they don't tell you it's the Taiwanese scale on a 1 to 7, which they don't, and a lot of the big quakes, they'll only tell you once every 15, 20, 25 stories. Well, you actually find them asserting those facets, those minutiae. But if you're familiar with it, then you recognize some of the terminology, right? So the seismic intensity scale gets tossed around a little too liberal. 6.7 magnitude quake rattles Taiwan. So this was 7, 8 kilometers off the coastline. This was only 24 kilometers deep. This was 140 kilometers away from multiple reactors that were running. And that had 150 aftershocks. And, no damage, nobody hurt. Nothing to see here, get lost. And then as you start following it for a few days, you're like, ooh, you're a filthy liar. Oh, you're a nuclear scumbag. I got to get those T-shirts and hats out now, Nuclear Scumbag Show. Tune in to Dana Durnford on ShitTube. So that's a catastrophic spot to have an earthquake. But when you actually look at Taiwan's earthquakes in 2018, 2016, like I did last night for you, and 1999 is like buildings, skyscrapers tipping over. That's a great spot to have nuclear power plants. What could possibly go wrong in that place? Not only that, they have typhoons. And like typhoons too, baby, like 160, 70, 80 miles per hour sustained winds, typhoons. A magnitude 6.7 that struck off the coast of Taiwan Wednesday with 150 aftershocks plus rattled buildings and roused the people from their sleep and caused a half-constructed bridge in the island's east to collapse. That was the original report, right? It's regularly hit by an earthquake. Oh, okay, so that's okay, is it? They don't matter, do they? It lies near the junction of 2 tectonic plates. Literally the stupidest spot on the planet you would build an earthquake nuclear power plant and keep all the waste right there. I'll give them credit, though. They went out and told the natives that they wanted to put a cannon factory on their island, and the natives were like, on Orchard Island, they're like, yeah, that's pretty cool. So, okay, thank you. And then they built a nuclear dump there and called it a canning factory. No cameras allowed. Hard cases. Ruthless. Just ruthless. Yeah, can we build a canning factory? That's just cruel, man. That's spineless, gutless. That's actually scum, right? That's the definition of a scumbag. It lies near the junction of two tectonic plates. Yeah, there's a great place to put a nuclear dump. It does not issue tsunami warnings. No, because it's only friggin' 5 kilometers off the coastline. What's the point? Unless it's 7 or above. But the tsunami will be sure if we get a chance to issue it. Government issue, and it's coming. If you looked at the earthquakes from 1999 to 2018, 2016, you can appreciate what I'm saying. Government issued alerts and sent people's cell phones blaring. Another plague. Everybody's cell phone screaming, it's the government! Jump! Don't come down until we tell you. I can't pronounce it. Hailing saw a deadly 6.4 magnitude quake 2018. A nasty 2016. Catastrophic 2,400 dead to 1999. And 300 injured. Not to downplay those victims. There's 150 aftershocks, give or take a couple of hundred. Wake up. 6 of one, a dozen of the other. My apologies. What has people worried with 72 aftershocks within 50-kilometer radius over the next 40 minutes? So that first earthquake had 72 aftershocks within a 50-kilometer radius. They don't. Tough world, man. That's a tough gig around there. Over the next 40 minutes. Yeah, and so they got a big one coming. There was a 6.6 earthquake north of Taiwan. They're expecting aftershocks in the 6 range. And they're very vague where they don't tell you whether it's their scale or the international scale or the magnitude. Or what has people worried were the 72 aftershocks right away in the first 40 minutes. Sometimes that's 2 in a minute. So 72 aftershocks over 40 minutes is 40 minutes of shaking. So think about it this way. You have an earthquake. Building starts cracking and tipping. And then the earthquake's over. Not Taiwan. No. Taiwan's got to step it up a notch and get 40 minutes of earthquakes. Sissy Japanese crying about 6 minutes. Ours lasts 40 minutes, dog. We are the king. Oh, yeah, we're stupid. We built a nuclear power plants in a no-go zone. As of now, 27 hours, 150 aftershocks around the island. Also on the other side of the island. Probably just going to erupt one great big bang one of these days. Normally I wouldn't quote Taiwan news due to its low quality. And hooked up to a video that was showing different damage around the city and different. So there was little shops and stuff like that shaking violently. I'm not sure any of this was true in Taiwan. But this was apparently legit. And you can see all different restaurants and houses and just very visible power through whatever part of the country they're showing there. Like serious power going on and animals freaking. He could barely stand up. It doesn't tell you the whole story in the pictures. That's just me. And I was just trying to gather up what I was seeing as I was going through it. And once again, the cars in the background were physically stuttering forward, stuttering back, and not slow now, but it was like this stutter motion where the earthquake was really something. If you go watch some of those videos, and it's not something I'm used to really we see a lot of. Which, that's a very strong earthquake doing stuff like that, is all I'm saying. And then when you're dropping bridges, now there's something, you see something up there flying, there's an optical illusion or something. Now you can see it right there, up there. I was trying to figure what the hell, and so now you can see it. It just looks like one shape, but I don't know of anything with two sets of wings, right? And I don't, right? You can see it up there as like a flying fish or something. I don't know what the hell it was, but I couldn't. I don't know what it is. Changes direction. That's a pretty good picture there. Look at that. What the hell? It's got to be an optical illusion? I don't know. I don't want it flying around me, though, I'll tell you what. Whatever the hell that was. Okay, so Fukushima. Oh, God. This was at ground zero where the earthquake just came ashore. They got a cover over it, but it'll look like that if it lasts, say for 1,000 years. It'll still look like that. That's a Medusa. You go up and touch that and wow, he made it all the way to the reactor before he died. That's crazy. You won't remember touching it. So, deteriorating plant threatens mass extinction around the world. Now, the reason they're saying that is because that's a model from NOAA of radioactive fallout. And because of the way the jet streams, as I showed you earlier, work, and I'll show you again in a moment, it carries it over, but then it disperses out immediately. But if it's continuing to melt down, it's continuing to carry across. I'll explain to you again in a minute. So this is one of the 4 reactors of the apocalypse. They felt that explosion 25 miles away. An AP reporter actually reported they felt the explosion of the 190-foot building. That was mixed oxide fuel. And that's so important because the toxins, the emissions from a normal reactor is considered 1 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. 1 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. That's the government site, by the way. And so decades of reactor cores were stored up here because they don't have a repository. And they have a lot of reactors. There's a lot of hot fuel sitting around. There's a lot of fuel where in these pools were over a decade or 2 old that had damage they couldn't take it out of the pool. Which apparently is standard practice at Scumbag nuclear power plants worldwide, where the fuel pools don't have containment, so they're always hemorrhaging the isotopes in the water because they're splitting the atom. That's what makes them hot, is they're still splitting the atom. They're perpetual disease and genocide factories. But anyway, the reactor core there and 2 fuel pools is missing from the equation that they're feeding to you. I'm trying to correct that damage of your misinformation, that is. So they built a structure around the destroyed building, then pretended, by bringing in this structure, laying it on it, pretended that they're inside of it. This is the official picture too. Taking the fuel out of a pool, which are at the top of the buildings that don't exist. It's gone China syndrome, some of it, whatever, it didn't blow up. Now, the problem with the story was there's multiple reactors that have those attributes where they're melted down. Fuel pools are also melted down. The plume comes in, immediately, within several days, meaning to last couple of days in particular, so you had a big earthquake that done lots of damage across the country and shook up all of Japan. And the jet streams bring us straight across. And this is bring up to today's jet stream. 24. So the last couple of days, this is what the jet stream is doing. Right? It's coming into North America. Now the problem is when it gets here, or almost across it, it does a split. Watch this. So the jet stream is still shooting across. It's just that it disperses out. These are the models from 2011 radioactive fallout. Nasty, right? And I'll speed it up for you. So there's many of these models of different isotopes doing the same thing. And we covered that. So Taiwan now is going to send Japan team. It just makes my mind, it's like eating too much ice cream. Your brain is like, Taiwan sends a team to Japan to survey Fukushima #1 water release. Taiwan. The same people that had 2,000 nuclear students spam the internet for almost 2 years straight, according to reports that came out of Taiwan, all day, every day, even in class, nuclear students were spamming the internet, lying to the population of the planet, challenging everything on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, everywhere else, and claiming it was harmless and innocuous and benign. And they're supposed to be the arbiters of facts now that the students are all grown up and got jobs for the government and everything else because they were so good at spamming the internet. Now somebody's supposed to put their faith in them. Taiwan just lifted all restrictions on 15 prefectures. 14 prefectures that were banned in 55 countries. Taiwan was like, we want to join the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Japan's like, just poison all you people with food from all over our country. We'll let you in. You scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. And so Taiwan, starting at the beginning of next month, is going to poison the people continuously with bioaccumulation, because they're going to fly it in on the shelves. It's disgusting that a couple of politicians decided to poison the entire population of the country with radioactive food from a nuclear wasteland. I don't know what you're saying. Now, Dana, you're from Canada. You should shut up, because Canada removed all restrictions after 93 days. Yeah, but we know we're scumbags over here. Taiwanese government dispatched, I say this with the utmost contempt, by the way, an investigative team to Japan. Really? The nuclear industry in Japan or Taiwan is somebody we can trust? Really? That's amazing. Your mother should wash her mother with soap. To look into the details of the planned release into the sea. They're talking about the tanks, water in the tanks. Now, they had 1,000 tanks in 2013. Guess how many tanks they got today? You're going to have to make a stand. You know that, don't you? On this planet. I made a stand. The people that follow me regularly made a stand. It's really easy to tell the truth. The truth is so easy. It makes me sick. Okay, I'll show you some evidence if you like. You like evidence? I like evidence. Risky stalemate. That's not the one. That one. Ignore the Mary Yamaguchi. She's a degenerate piece of work, that one. 2013, 1,000 steel tanks. 2014, Mary Yamaguchi, by the way, 1,200 tanks. Well, that's pretty crazy. 1,200 tanks in 2014. 2017, 900 tanks. Try walking with both of your feet flat on the ground like that. Hold your arms straight down, try walking, see how normal that feels. Japan will have to dump radioactive water into the Pacific. 2019, 1,000 tanks. In 2021, you guessed it, 1,000 tanks. So you got 1,000 tanks in 2013, 1,200 tanks in 2014, 900 in 2000. You're so gullible if you believe anything Taiwan tells you. You poor thing. Treated water containing tritium. The treated water containing radioactive tritium. That's actually what a zombie does. Is your media. It just takes the same story, spreads it everywhere, and everybody is stuck with a couple of paragraphs from the same author with the same pictures at the same time. And they couldn't care less about you. If they ran your children over with their car, they'd go through their pockets for their lunch money. The team made up of 8 members, including, you guessed it, experts. Well, I feel better. How about you? There's no such thing as a nuclear expert in the nuclear industry. Just scumbags. That's it. There is no good people in the nuclear industry. They go there to die. Tokyo Electric Power Holding Company, which is nationalized, is actually the government of Japan. In the Fukushima prefecture, decided 2011 triple reactor meltdown. It was 4 buildings of the fuel pools gone, so 8 fuel pools. Each fuel pool had decades of reactor cores. And when you change, you're doing you're doing maintenance, you don't take all the fuel out of the reactor. Lies, oh my God, more lies. Nuclear day. Oh yeah, right. Taiwan has expressed its opposition to the water release plan. What water? They haven't stopped friggin' releasing it. They don't store water there. The idea of the bags, the idea of the tanks, hang on. The idea of the tanks is propaganda. It's just propaganda. That's all that's for. And we counted the tanks, we being me, and there's only 750 tanks. Thank you very much. The tanks are built to trick you into thinking it didn't kill the Pacific. And they killed the Pacific. We've done research expeditions, by the way. Let me see here. If you go over to my site, thenuclearproctologist.org, or you go back to my first video on this new site that we're on right now, Durnford, Taiwan's Atomic Energy Council. These are the pro-nuclear, what's known as nuclear cranks. There's nothing they won't do for the nuclear industry. If the nuclear industry asks them to murder their children, they're like, yeah, do you want it bloody? I'll do it. I love nuclear. I love nuclear. At the Fukushima #1 plant, water contaminated with radioactive substances. Water contaminated with radioactive. Well, where'd the tritium go? There's no such thing as tritium. It's tritium-3H. There's real tritium in the environment, That's harmless. But tritium-3H is not. They use it in nuclear weapons, for goodness sakes. And it makes the nuclear weapons twice as powerful by using tritium, the harmless tritium. They call it harmless because it doesn't emit very far. But far enough to wreck your DNA and your chromosome for 120 years. All day, every day for the rest of your life. And as you bioaccumulate it, of course, it's not just tritium. They're only emitting to gamma. They're only emitting the cesium and iodine at that. They're not acknowledging uranium, plutonium, and americium and the thousand of other fission products that killed all the animals and all the experiments worldwide. As TEPCO continues to cool nuclear fuel, as the homeless continues to cool the nuclear fuel debris, because that's what's left there, a little bit of debris, at the damaged reactors. Damaged! I showed you the pictures. There's damage, and then there's Fukushima. Well, here's your loving media trying to convince you it doesn't look like the one to the left. No.
We are here inside Reactor 4 at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant that was severely crippled during the earthquake and tsunami of 2011, leading to the country's worst nuclear disaster.
So that creature is trying to convince the vulnerables on national TV that she's inside of a building that doesn't even exist. That doesn't worry you. That doesn't shock you. That doesn't frighten you. What the frig else has they been up to is the big question. What have you been up to? Hi, everybody. We got a poll, 39 votes. Japan's earthquake damaged 1,200 buildings and 1,000 places along the train tracks. So was Fukushima damaged and covered up? Because I got 100 digits. I was hoping you could read between the lines. I got 100%, 40 votes, unequivocally says, booyah, they're covering it up. But look, this is their legacy, pretending that they're in a building that don't exist. They'd murder you just for breakfast, just for a bit of fun. They couldn't care less about you. See, it's not her, the owner of CNN, and it's not just CNN. No, all friggin' media done it to you. And they weren't like, oh, come on, you don't want me to do that. They're like, sure, yeah, I'm in. Fuck yeah. What am I getting out of it again? Excuse the language. So all of them pretending they're in the building alongside of you to the left. That's not cool, is it? So that meant BBC, ABC Australia, BB Rupert Winfield Hayes, CBS Seth Dorn, a senator's son, no less, and PBS, right? He's on PBS all the time. Cecilia Vega's currently in the White House press staff because she helped cover it up from Australia. And CNN Anna Corrin has a distinguished career after suckering everybody worldwide on national TV. But all the media, the editors, the producers, the makeup artists, everybody had to participate in the lie. Everybody in the studio had to participate in the lie. It's normal. That's normal. I hope that shocks you. Because if that shocks you, then hang on. One more little 1 minute video. Because that's an actual video right there. I'll play it for you if you want me to. Why not? Hang on though. Meet Patrick Clausen. Now, Patrick's going to explain how we got into all the wars for the last 100 years or so. In other words, what he's going to tell you is you attack yourself and blame it on the country you want to go to war in. And that way the country gets behind it. See? You're like, nah, that can't be real, Dana. Well, actually it is. And I put the pictures and everything in there for you. It's very quick.
I frankly think that crisis initiation is really tough. And it's very hard for me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Some people might think...
Let me go back. It's very hard to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran.
For me to see how the United States president can get us to war with Iran. Some people might think Mr. Wilson wanted to get us into World War I. You may recall he had to wait for the Lusitania episode. Some people might think that Mr. Johnson wanted to send troops to Vietnam. You may recall he had to wait for the Gulf of Tonkin episode. We didn't go to war with Spain until until the Maine exploded. And may I point out that Mr. Lincoln did not feel he could call out the Federal Army until Fort Sumter was attacked, which is why he ordered the commander at Fort Sumter to do exactly that thing which the South Carolinians had said would cause an attack. Some people might think that Mr. Roosevelt wanted to get us into World War II, as David mentioned. You may recall we had to wait for Pearl Harbor. So if, in fact, the Iranians aren't going to compromise, it would be best if somebody else started the war.
It would be best if somebody else started the war. And blame it on the Irans, right? When you say tritium, that's them defecating on you, vomiting over you with contempt. That's their contempt. So Taiwan has dispatched an investigative team to help cover up the concerns that Taiwanese are going to have. Oh, no, we sent down our nuclear lawyers and they said everything is okay. Have a nice day. So Japan's earthquake cost insurers between $2 billion and $4 billion. Cracks in the road. A powerful earthquake jolted Japan's northeast coast. Suspected to cause insured property losses. Say $4 billion worth of damage. That's a real earthquake. It had to come past the very fragile reactors. And so we have to worry about the plume falling out. But we also got to worry about the nuclear industry, what it's doing as we speak. It's obviously this industry got to go or we're going to go. That's how this actually works. You get rid of them, that's not going to happen without change. Or they're going to exterminate all the species on the planet, which is what's happening because of Fukushima radioactive fallout. And now that they had major earthquake at ground zero, they said around 400 million to 820 million losses from March the 16th earthquake will stem from damages to commercial and industrial properties, but not Fukushima. No damage where the earthquake came ashore, just billions of dollars of damage across the country in 14 prefectures. More than 1,000 buildings were impacted in the Fukushima and Miyagi prefecture. And then the actual number is 1,200. And it comes up later. Other losses include power and water outages, damages to highway. There's over 1,000 spots that got to be fixed on high-speed rail lines. I don't know about the other railway tracks. And the country also contends with tsunamis, typhoons, floods, and, erupting volcanoes. What a great spot to put 54 nuclear power plants, huh? None of them are safe. They're shut down, the majority of them, but they still got fuel and pools at all of these sites. You have an event there, like you can't deal with this over a week with every perfect conditions. What are you going to do when they have an event? And they're going to have the event. They've already had it, as we've seen. What they're going to do is they roll out the snuff machine that you call the media. Despite its sophisticated tsunami warning system. Like Japan's the only place on the planet where they have vending machines that sell little girls' panties used. Japan was caught largely by surprise. by the 8.9 magnitude earthquake in 2019 or 2011 that killed nearly 20,000 people. 100 shelters and water supply still cut after a quake in Fukushima, but no damage at ground zero to the fragile buildings where the earthquake came ashore. Which there had to be, of course, which means we're going to be worried about a plume now here today, that's here today, because this happened last Wednesday, 8 days ago, our time. 100 shelters, I read that story. There they are. All the water lines are broke. There's a lot of people without water. In Soma, Fukushima, same as that place, that picture there. You can see damage to a stadium. 1,000 households have no drinking water in Fukushima Prefecture a week after the powerful offshore earthquake caused extensive infrastructure damage. But the fragile buildings like this, we're worried about a recriticality and another chain reaction, has no issue. There's no plumes coming out of there. Obviously, from what we seen yesterday, there's plumes coming out of the number 1 reactor. And I'm treating it as we got radioactive plume coming our way. But unfortunately, what are you going to do, right? They got us boxed in. So the idea is you got to wake up the planet, and then the planet has so much contempt for the industry. They all go buy baseball bats and, well, you can kind of guess where I'm going with that one. Caused extensive infrastructure damage. Because that's coming, right? The day is coming. The world is going to wake up to nuclear, and it's going to be ugly. I see I see T-shirts in the future all over the internet. Kill a nuclear scientist, win a case of pop kind of T-shirts. Just this incredible hate. It's coming. There's no way to avoid it, right? I'm not suggesting anybody should kill a degenerate scumbag nuclear scientist. God bless their evil, despicable hearts. No, I'm just saying in the future, I have no problem at all seeing the internet all over the place, people selling T-shirts, vilifying, demonizing, and lashing out at the degenerate monsters. They do it to you, sure. The late night quake on March the 16th knocked out water supplies to up to 70,000 households. So we're worried that we're going to get another one of these plumes because they had damage all over the place, is what I'm showing you. But they're claiming there was no damage at the plant. They're actually saying the water in the number 1 containment vessel, which doesn't even exist, is 100% doesn't exist, right? It was liquefied. It burned continuously for several days. We're talking about uranium. It doesn't burn friendly. It burns into Dante's hell. You're talking about 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. It's gone China syndrome right away. Many houses in Soma were soon damaged. Miyagi Prefecture also suffered damage, but not ground zero where the earthquake came ashore. Right to Fukushima and Nuclear Meltdowns. In terms of rain leaking, and the damage from the quake is greater than that from the Great Eastern Japan earthquake of 2011, said one person. He said he doesn't know when workers can completely fix his house because so many other people need to have their houses repaired. Yeah, but the nuclear power plants are okay. Stoic, like the Japanese, I suppose. If they got done to our planet, there's no word currently in the dictionary that does it justice trying to articulate it. And so reactor 3, the It still looks like that today, but it's got a cover on it. Do you really think that that didn't crumble and start another chain reaction? That's what we're worried about. But we're worried about that with reactor 2, because reactor 2 has those same attributes. It burned continuously and was liquefied. There's a lethal mixed oxide fuel on top of that. The number 1 was originally reportedly caused by the earthquake. That's number 1. So that one burnt continuously for several days, blew up and caught fire, and blew up and blew up and caught fire. Not necessarily in that order. 238 people were injured in 12 prefectures. So it came flying past the nuclear meltdowns, injured 230 people in 12 prefectures, but didn't damage the fragile 4 buildings remains and caused the chain reaction and the emissions that are now covering the planet. No damage, Dana. Then he came out and said yesterday that containment in Unit 1 dropped water by 40 centimeters. You can't get in Unit 1 because there was a massive nuclear meltdown that happened there. It was over 1 million sieverts outside of this building. The fuel pool went how far up in the sky? Hang on. Here's what Unit 1 actually looked like when it detonated. These were 190-foot buildings you see there. That's number 3. Oops, hang on. Hang on. Did I get the wrong one again or what? Yeah, that's Unit 1 right there blowing up. And then Unit 3 blowing up looks like this. Man. My goodness. And that's now known as the start of the end of humanity, these reactors. Post-disaster deaths among survivors an urgent issue. All they do is lie, and they lie a lot, right? We lie, you lie, I lie. We all die. Post-disaster deaths among survivors an urgent issue. Post-disaster deaths. So that was the head of TEPCO back in 2011, apologizing to the people in the shelter. Very touching story. Visit an evacuation site, Koriyama, which is a nuclear wasteland, by the way, in Fukushima, to apologize to people forced to evacuate from their hometown. That's the shit job there. Wonder they didn't kill them. They kill them now if they caught them, but back then they were too weak from radiation poisoning. Triple meltdown. It wasn't a triple meltdown. There was 4 reactor buildings and 8 fuel pools that caught fire and burnt continuously for days. And went into some of it went into a China syndrome. Triple. It's not a triple, it's 4. You'll see that everywhere too, the word triple. The cover-up is unbelievable. They're claiming more than 3,700 people who evacuated their homes officially recognized they have died from causes related to the disaster. Now, they're going to try to blame the majority of it on cigarettes and alcohol. The deaths stem from health problems triggered by the stress of years of living as evacuees. Well, no, we've seen endless amounts of people turned into refugees. They don't just drop dead all the time. This is unique to Fukushima. Health problems triggered by the stress of years living as evacuees. I'm not saying that can't happen. 100% can happen, right? But what we seen was right away was several thousand deaths. Now, we never seen that in typhoons or cyclones or hurricanes or anything else, right? We never seen that. Texas. Hello. Hello. They hung up. Texas. Let's keep it going. Health problems triggered by the stress of years living as evacuees. No, they died from radiation poisoning. That's why they evacuated. And the majority of the people, there was actually 500,000 that evacuated. 3,700 died. So what they're trying to do is conflate that into anything but nuclear, even though they admit some of it had to be for nuclear, which is probably the first time we ever seen them admit that. 1,263 in the three hardest hit prefectures of Iwate, Miyagi, and Fukushima. It stands to reason many of the related deaths were linked in some way to the nuclear disaster. That's the only time but they go on and lie. Municipal governments, now we've covered some of this before a couple of years ago. Municipal government involved in the process of tallying the deaths related to the 2011 calamity kept records on how the impact of the disaster led to the deaths, including the medical history of the victims. Medical history. But no unified rule is in place to govern how long the records should be kept, and a rising concern that they could be destroyed at any time, which is what actually happened in those prefectures already. I got it there somewhere in my short list, which is like 1,200. I can't remember because I don't use it too much, right? Exactly where I put it. But they had just like a warehouse of boxes of documentation of people because everything is kept in triplicates for the government, right? And a couple of years back, they decided to get rid of it because they didn't want to store it any longer because it was only required to store it for like 3 years. So I was like, too bad. You'll never know, and we'll never tell. But that is the history and legacy of the scumbag, degenerate nuclear scumbags. A professor at the Department of Radiation Health Management at Fukushima Medical University. Fukushima Medical University set the standards for the victims in Japan. And they only use external doses only. They didn't do internal. Well, that's a lie. In a couple of random places, they admitted there was some internal doses, but the numbers they had was 0.01 unisievers, the ultimate insult. So Fukushima Medical University should be arrested and shot after they're convicted for what they done. They got all the victims, all of them, on external doses only. This is why I say the nuclear industry is just insane. It's actually insane. They're suffering from radiation damage, and because they're all the inbreeds, they inbreed with each other for so many decades, they're actually a weird form of human cockroach. Noted that various facets of the evacuation process were behind the deaths. No, they were evacuating because they were breathing in radiation, which of course Japan refuses to acknowledge happened. In a country where the whole country is in a radioactive plume. I'll show you what I mean. See this one here? This is 19 days, 468 hours. The plume covers the whole planet. But imagine how bad it is in ground zero of Japan. Imagine eating food from Japan, let alone North America. You're supposed to evacuate the Northern Hemisphere, see? If it was just a localized area with the numbers, say the numbers that are coming in there, It didn't happen to the whole country. They only happened to one city or one community. You 100% would have evacuated that city or that community. 100%. If they had a localized event and got the same numbers as we got from the academic studies, and we're talking 220 million atoms, for instance, of just the iodine 129 per liter of rainfall. Confirmed. Does rain just fall by the liter? With a 15 million year half-life that has 10 half-lives, and it wrecks your DNA and the chromosomes of insects and birds and animals and mammals and sterilizes them and in increments over several years, and it's just like they never even existed. They disappear in increments over a couple of years. I seen a bee last year. Looked like he had a big tumor on his head. Some experts warn that deep anxiety felt in the aftermath of the disaster can sap the energy of survivors and lead directly to their deaths. Some experts say the nuclear experts are scumbags and degenerates. It's a true story. Since March 11, 2011, Japan has been struck by a number of natural disasters. Last week, the Tohoku region was jolted, that's being polite, by a powerful earthquake. Well, it was actually two earthquakes. They had a 6 point something and then a 6.6 on the Japanese scale of 7. So you got to turn that into the international scale of 10. It's a 9.4, 9.5. Tohoku's utility asked the military to save power after an earthquake damages generating plants, coal plants and stuff like that. But not the nuclear power plant that's fragile, no. But sturdy, strong, well-built, big plants, yeah, no problem. Far, far away from ground zero, yeah. There's a plume hitting North America as we speak. The nuclear industry is actually evil. It's actually completely out of control. And it's the United Nations too, right? The puppet master is United Nations. As George Bush calls them, the New World Order. It made it to 7.4 earthquake March 16th damaged thermal power plants in northeastern Japan. Thermal power plants. In the same region where they had the 2011, TEPCO, which is nationalized, doesn't even exist anymore, warned of blackouts because of the spike in demand. You like this? This is a great story. Army officials' websites said that officials hope to drastically cut the garrison's annual power bill of $20 million. So the base is using $20 million of power a year. Just talk about carbon footprints. Holy shit. Meanwhile, the Air Force is installing new thermostats, data, to limit the range of temperatures in the base's homes. So that's pretty good bang for your dollar. The thermostats will cost $18 million, $18.7, $19 million to install. How much are they going to cost to buy? Tax dollars, there's your tax dollars. $18.7 million. And they got a $20 million a year bill each year. Never turned off a single light in the last 90 years, probably. Japan just lifted the power outage warnings, but the outlook is fragile because a lot of the plants won't be on for a couple of months. The ministry, however, called for continuing conservation efforts because some coal-fired plants will remain offline for up to another few months. 3 or 4, whatever. So there's major damage, is what I'm saying to you. I'm showing it to you. It's unequivocal. You got to treat what's happening as a radioactive plume coming your way. And you got to realize it's time to gut up and get after the nuclear industry and start holding its feet to the fire. The government seeks to restart more nuclear power plants, although the public safety concerns run high after Fukushima. None of the 54 nuclear power plants, they each got thousands of employees, right? None of them volunteered to work at Fukushima. Nah, get rid of the homeless, the destitute, the victims of society, the immigrants who don't speak the language. On March 16, a magnitude 7.4 earthquake on the northeast coast killed 4 people, damaged buildings, and caused power outages that peaked at 2 million homes and 8 other areas. Tuesday's power crunch was believed to be among the worst since the governments conducted planned outages in the Tokyo area for 10 days after Fukushima Daiichi meltdowns in 2011. So there was major damage for 12 prefectures, I think it is. But where it came ashore first, there was no damage to the vulnerable nuclear meltdowns. That's the damnedest thing. That's what that is. Activating the Philippines nuclear power plant would give cancer to workers and adults living nearby. Gotta like that story there. That's pretty cool. You're going, buddy. That's the doctor wrote this story, by the way. So they're going to try to resurrect this decrepit old plant that I thought was condemned. We've covered this how many? Like 100 times or something? This place. They built it but didn't fuel it. That's the story. Who knows with the nuclear industry for sure though, right? Ever wonder why dentists shield your body with lead before an x-ray? First off, they're trying to get doctors and dentists and everybody else to stop using the aprons because the x-ray machine calibrates on its own. So if you got an x-ray blanket or padding, lead padding, the x-ray machine is going to jack up the dose to get an x-ray. Do anybody really believe they don't know they're doing that? And they've been trying to get them to stop using it, but they're having a tough time because they're not really trying. Sickening. Like there's no horror movie competes with a 24-hour cycle of the nuclear news. There's nothing in Hollywood comes close to it. Once you learn what's going on, it's like, holy crap, these people are freaking animals. Even animals wouldn't kill each other like this. People worry about how a nuclear accident like those at 3 Mile Island in the United States, which is the worst one there was that we know about, was Santa Susana. It released 460 times more radiation than the brutal 3 Mile Island. And that was a brutal accident, radiated 2 million people. According to the government, though, they got the same dose as if they watched color television for an extra year. That's official. That was Arnie Gunnarsson, Lake Barrett cooked that one up. Chernobyl in Ukraine. And Miyagi was worse. But Chernobyl was pretty brutal with 3 million disabled children. Sick children, I should say, I guess, permanently. And Fukushima in Japan would compromise the Filipinos' health should one occur in the Philippines. Those are certainly valid concerns. And evil while operating normally is appropriate actually. Nuclear power plants elevate the risk of cancer Now, once again, it's not just cancer. It's heart problems and liver and lung and respiratory and pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline and Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, diabetes and Down syndrome. There's 1,800 illnesses and diseases. Your immune system is compromised. You're susceptible now to pathogens and viruses that were normally harmless. All species, not just humans, by the way. We will devote our next foray, in fact, the species are more vulnerable than the humans. We will devote our next foray to the even worse threat that BN nuclear power plant would pose to children and fetuses. Here you go, man. This is good. But first, let's ask just how much radiation is okay. Of course, the nuclear industry denies or minimizes the harm from radiation. Not really, though, because they do admit on certain sites that radiation fallout is 1 billion times more toxic than industrial poison, and which means just a single atom can make you sick. It does that by sequestering your muscles, your organs, and your bones. Your body attacks it for the rest of your life every second viciously with a constant stream of white blood cells. The white blood cells, of course, in order for them to exist, they got to displace your red blood cells. Your red blood cells carry oxygen and nutrition throughout your body. So as you bioaccumulate radiation, you have more white blood cells than red blood cells. They call that leukemia. And then you die. 97% of you, anyway. The other 3% were misdiagnosed, and they gave them radiation. Killed them eventually anyway. Okay, so in 2000, this is nutty as it gets, by the way. The nuclear industry denies or minimizes the harm from radiation. In 2015, 3 lunatic pro-nuclear advocates petitioned, we covered this in 2015, petitioned the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. One of them was from Forbes, James, what's his name from Forbes? Anybody remember? I can't remember off the top of my head. Because Rod Adams used to write there sometimes. That used to just drive me over the deep end. In 2015, Michael Schellenberg also writes for them too, right? In 2015, 3 puke advocates petitioned the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which are degenerates, by the way, to raise the permissible levels of radiation exposure for nuclear reactor personnel, claiming smaller doses are harmless. They also invoked hormesis, which means it's good for you. The weird idea that high-dose radiation is harmful, but low doses are actually good, stimulating organisms and cells to develop beneficial defenses. In fact, the petitioners said absurdly low limits for permissible radiation actually deprives the nuclear workers of a benefit. So by denying them the increase, you were denying the workers the benefit of getting irradiated with anthropogenic man-made radiation. But the petitioners were denied in 2021 because other organizations were going to sue if the nuclear regulatory, if they had to, when they had pushed it. We covered it in 2015. But demonic. They're actually demonic. The linear no threshold is no safe. There is no safe level. But the International Atomic Energy Agency, also known as United Nations, are based on natural stuff. Their limits are based on natural, not harmful radiation. In other words, they have no limit. They faked it. It's absurd. That any dose are greater than 0, even small ones, will increase the risk of cancer or disease, heritable diseases. No, it can increase up to 1,800 illnesses and diseases because your body is compromised, your immune system is compromised because it's fighting the radiation sequestered in your body. So unisieverts, microsieverts, millisieverts, and stuff like that, that's why I say that's outrageous, because that's an external dose. Becquerel's atomic decays, atoms and particles, is an internal dose. You're breathing it in, consuming it, drinking it, and it sequesters in your muscles, your organs, your bones. Your body attacks it immediately every second for the rest of your life with white blood cells. The more you got, the less red blood cells. You become lethargic and even brain dead. Lack of oxygen, right? It's called leukemia. The U.S. National Academy of Sciences, which is co-opted. National Council on Radiation Protection relies on linear no threshold because it has been derived from extensive studies of the Japanese atomic bomb survivors. Those studies are all external studies. Japan has refused to help the victims because he said there was no internal doses big enough to harm you at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Despite the studies that show there was incredible harmful doses. But there was no way to build Hiroshima and Nagasaki back on the bomb craters if they admitted there was internal dosing going on. Right? That's how they done it. And then predators like Geraldine Thomas from United Kingdom, amongst others, have co-opted the studies and manipulated to say there was no adverse side effects. Just the genocidal, murdering scum. BNPP foremost proponents, former congressmen, nicely symbolized how the nuclear industry minimizes the cancer risks. He is fond of saying that eating a banana exposes one to more radioactivity than standing in front of a nuclear power plant for an entire year. Now, anybody who knows me gotta know how much I hate the banana peddlers. Oh, hate them. It's I can't say public what I think about them. First off, it's not very nice, and second off, it's not very nice. He's fond of saying that eating a banana exposes you to more radioactivity than standing in front of a nuclear power plant for an entire year. Haven't heard that one 7, 8, 9 years, actually. I went out and bludgeoned everybody for several years that said the word banana. I specifically made a video addressed to them personally. And it wasn't pretty, I'll admit. I wasn't very nice back in them days. At all, man. I wasn't. It was a hard case anyway. I still am, but can't change what you can't change. They're still scumbags. He is known for his fondness of getting his information from Wikipedia. Nukipedia, as we call it around here. The nuclear industry literally captured the regulators and Wikipedia and Google and Facebook metadata. He is known for his fondness of getting his information from the propaganda. So solid cancers, see him talking about cancers, but that you got to talk about heart problems and liver problems and lung problems and respiratory and pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline and all the other ones. You got to invoke them so people got a nice strong rhetoric to work with and bludgeon the opposition with. See? The radiation exposure from bananas that he refers to, presumably from their potassium-40. Ooh, you shouldn't have went there. Confuses direct reactor radiation with radiation inside of human bodies taken in radioactive reactor emissions. Conflating, what he's saying, they're conflating the two of them. Natural stuff with anthropogenic man-made stuff. So he invokes the iodine, the cesium, tritium, and which he actually uses correctly as a H3, by the way. These pollute water and soil and vegetation and crops. Bananas don't. Far beyond the direct radiation. When inhaled, ingested, or absorbed through the skin, they travel to the bone, the brain, the thyroid, the liver, and other organs. There they continuously subject cells to alpha, beta, and gamma, and neutron radiation. I put that in there just because you forgot. Eventually, it can induce cancers and heart problems, and liver, and lung, and respiratory, and pituitary, and thyroid, and adrenaline. So eating bananas, if they're grown near an active nuclear power plant, might be much less safe than Scumbag thinks. So potassium-40, what is the difference, Dana? Okay, well, that's a great question. Just give me a second. I'll tell you. You ready? So radiation, not unisieverts or microsieverts or millisieverts, because that's for stuff like x-rays at the dentist's office or being close to a nuclear meltdown. But radioactive, and you'll get atoms at the nuclear meltdown site. Oh, brother, will you ever. So 1 Becquerel is atomic disintegration per second. So 1 Curie is 37 billion atomic decays. What that means is a pulse of energy. It's just one atom will pulse energy every second at 186,000 miles per second. It's just a staggering number if you add it up to the 1 hour per second, almost the speed of light in every direction. And so a Curie, you get 37 billion atomic booms, microscopic. You can put a million atoms on the head of a needle, you can't see it. But each of those atoms can make a person or an animal or an insect or a bird sick. So 37 billion atomic disintegrations per second per Curie. So there's 88 Curies per gram for cesium and 140 Curies per gram for strontium-90, for instance. Now, strontium-90 peaks after about 1,000 days after the meltdown, which is like 3 years after it started, but doesn't slow down for at least tens of thousands of days. So 37 billion times 88 is how many atoms are created per gram of cesium. Let me do the math for you. You like it. I'm going to use a fancy calculator and everything. It's like some kind of big shot. Here we go. Okay. So you got 37 billion. Oh, they're big numbers. Here I was. 37 billion times 140 Curies per gram of strontium-90, which is a bone seeker for all species. So times 140 per gram now. That's how many atoms? 5,180,000,000,000. That make you feel more comfortable? Now think about what a chain reaction is. It's emitting this constantly. And so an earthquake, right, rocks and steel and rebar will fall down on the continuously melting reactor cores at 9,000 degree Fahrenheit temperature. So as the rocks get close to this, it starts atomizing and aerosoling, ionizing and radiating, and is emitted. So, but each reactor had multiple fuel pools at the top of it. They were atomized and aerosoled, the majority of it. And a lot of it, rather, also went chain reaction down to the Earth. We're still emitting huge numbers. So a gram can emit 5,180,000 atoms. So that's 5,180,000 atoms now distributed around the world, pulsing energy every second. So imagine all the fuel pools, over 1,000 fuel pools worldwide, that are full of reactor, like 800-ton reactor cores, that are still splitting the atom. Because this is what splitting the atom is all about also. Where it just keeps producing these atoms. They're released and they're pulsing. All day there's more being produced. And they don't melt to spring water after. They get assimilated in everything and they destroy it. So the numbers we're actually talking about are just unbelievable numbers. These are unbelievable numbers that we're talking about, the emissions. So per gram, 5,180,000,000,000 atoms. So potassium 40 is 0.000071 curies, but not harmful curies. They're good curies. Your body uses potassium to make hormones, but it uses cesium and iodine from a nuclear accident to make radioactive hormones. And radioactive hormones, bad. So you start consuming it, biomagnifying. If you're biomagnifying 1,400 becquerels, you're getting 500 days of 10 becquerels bioaccumulation because the government is raising the limit and it's in your food. Well, 500 days, you got 1,400 becquerels, which is 20 becquerels a kilogram for adults and 70 becquerels a kilogram for children. So every kilogram of your body, you have these atomic decays going off. Now the problem is that it just compulses right through your body, some of this stuff, and it does. Now the other problem associated with that is in your body it's pulsing. You got gamma, alpha, neutrons, and the neutrons are just insidious, and you got alpha, beta, gamma, and neutrons. They pulse at the speed of light. They hit each other in your body and change direction. It's a braking effect. But remember, it's traveling at 186,000 miles per billionth of a second, and it changes direction. And it does just wrecks your chromosome, your DNA, and everything in your body. A 2012 study found that adults living near French nuclear power plants suffered significantly more bladder cancer compared to other populations. And of course, you see a big ratio of males to females being born, more males than females around nuclear power plants. The only way you can do that is you got to radiate the shit out of everybody to get those statistics. A recent South Korean research blamed nuclear power plants for high incidences of thyroid and radiation-related cancers in females and males, and female breast cancer. In fact, years ago I used to have this study, we used to use it all the time, like a lot of studies I suppose. There was 6 times more breast cancer within 15 miles of a nuclear power plant. And significantly, there was no abnormally high incidences of cancers not associated with radiation. So there was no cancer clusters unless you were in a hot zone of a nuclear facility. Really, a hot zone should be within 1,000 to 2,000 to 3,000 miles of any nuclear power plants. But most nuclear power plants are surrounded by farms. Our next foray explores the alarming fact that young children and unborn babies are especially threatened by radioactive pollutants around nuclear power plants. Oh, joy. And let's go back to the poll here. How is the poll? So, Japan's earthquake damaged 1,200 buildings that we know about, 1,000 places on the train tracks. So was Fukushima damaged, and was it covered up? Got 57 votes with 98%. Wow, so it's an astounding yes that There was damage. Yes, it was covered up. And by rights, I should have had a poll there. Is America and Canada and North America being hit with a new radioactive plume? Well, the evidence that we looked at now since March the 16th shows lots of damage across the country, but ground zero was the fragile buildings. And so I'm worried sick about everybody in all species, and you should be too, because this has gone on long enough. This is a genocide machine. This industry is completely out of control. Ooh, okay, so we got 58 votes. 98%. I'm going to end the poll. That's really good. Thank you, everybody. That tells the story, right? Okay. And so, yeah, we got that little fox finally on camera. He's the fella that's making all the tracks. I'm going to bring the cameras back in tomorrow. Tomorrow, though, I'm going to do... get the compressor out. Tomorrow we're getting the compressor out. This one here? Yeah. No. This one. Here we go. The compressor. So tomorrow we're going to get... That thing is about 3.5 feet tall. It's a 20 gallons. Brand new. The one I wanted to pick up is gone. And so... I just went for it. The hell with it. It was on sale, saved $70. And so I spent more than I wanted to, obviously, but I'm, you know what, that was the right one to get. It's brand new, and it's a decent one. It's 20 gallons, which means I can run my tools for 4 to 5 minutes straight before it kicks in again. So I can do a bit of painting also that I needs with it. But I can also think about buying another tank and splicing it in. That way I have that 20 gallon plus, say, a 60 gallon. So now I got volume for like 15 minutes before it kicks back in, right? If I decide I needed more air, I can easily just plumb in another tank. You can pick them up for like $100, see? But that's really good. I got no complaints about that. That's going to run all the tools. And I've got a lot of work to get done because we got so much equipment. It's old now, decrepit. Like we got 3 trailers and boats and quads and bikes and blub, just truck and all kinds of stuff. And it's getting old now. All the equipment is getting pretty old, right? So we got all the tools in just the last couple of weeks. I'm just completely speechless. And I loved trying to get my hands on a 86-piece tap and die set, because that's huge to resolve issues. No messing around. I got to get some good cotton oil for that, because that's a darling. Tomorrow I'm going to unbox I wish I had a good picture of the tank, but I don't. Tomorrow I'm going to unbox the tank and set it up. I got plywood and 2x4s. I'm going to split the 2x4. I'm going to build a box to put that in. I got to find some insulation to put inside of to keep the noise down. It's not bad though, right? I couldn't care less about the noise. I'm just saying, might as well do something like that. I'm just really, really happy to have all the tools that we managed to pick up. We're in pretty darn good shape. Like, seriously, we're in amazing shape all of a sudden. Everything is working now, right? So that's a huge deal. And this is Friday, or my Friday, Thursday. I start again on Sunday, right? And so last week I was going to do a show on Saturday because of the earthquake. I said, no, I got to wait till Sunday to get back on schedule, the 5-day schedule. So it's really hard not to do a show on Saturday because we done it on Sunday instead. And so we spent just to make sure everybody understands, it was $402 tax included because it was saved $70, was on sale. And then that was $115. And then I spent almost $50 on gas because gas has gone through the ceiling. So a bit more than I wanted to, for sure. But we got it now, so it don't matter. Turnkey now. I'll set it up tomorrow, plug it all in. I was gonna go through the manual tonight or tomorrow morning, watch a few videos, set it up, start stringing cords, start getting shit done, and then take Sunday off. I'm pretty excited because I wasn't expecting it, right, to get the rest of the gear because it's a lot of money, right? And I just feel better now, really do. I'm just going to enjoy the weekend, set it up, get a bunch of chores out of the way, get these tools starting to work right away. Got to get out and get the camera back on the trails. Let's say goodnight to everybody. I think we had it was a mad week. John Schiff. Hi, John. Ayers. Peaceware. I know Stephen Young was out there. I missed him on the last show. Or the second last show, I can't remember. I've seen it after. I'd love to know Chelsea and Port Angeles, which is Turkey, Sue. James Lucid, thanks again, James, man. Wow. You're awesome. Yeah, I wonder how the ice wall is doing. That's a great question, actually. Yeah, why didn't they build a wall instead of an ice wall? Well, you know the answer to that, hopefully. It's because they're lunatics. Well, they originally said these 260,000 people worked on the ice wall. This is nonsense. It means you paid everybody $1,200 and never bought an ice wall. Taiwan sends the crew social engineers. And keep going there. Hope everybody's doing well. Shane, the show is over. We're just doing shout out. Last call for the weekend. I'll be out in the woods tomorrow. Don Vincent, and get the cameras back out. We'll be in the shed working all weekend. I'm super happy. Yeah, I'm watching Russia. Well, I don't know, right? It didn't play out the way we were expecting it. I'm paying attention. We got to stay on nuclear. Dana Nasana. Obsolete Optics. Thank you again. Patrick. Good night, everybody. John Curtis. I know Colette is out there somewhere. It's okay, Colette. You don't need to get in the comments section. Just keep doing your thing. All good. Peaceware, Richards. A little slow here tonight. I'm really worried what is happening from Japan. I'm worried about Taiwan too, because Taiwan got a lot of nuclear plants. And Taiwan's legacy of lying is disgusting. Jeff Johnson. Good night, everyone. We're almost down through the names. Provoke, Chuck. Yeah, there's so much work to get done. I just can't wait to get started. Get it out of the way right before spring. Get as much of it accomplished before spring. There's always lots of stuff to do in spring. Kevin Blanche will be on the trail a lot. We'll be on the ocean a lot this year, doing research expeditions. Ocean Man. Hi, everybody. Just a thinker. I'm just scrolling from the top to the bottom for anybody who's not familiar. PBS. Marjorie Vincent. Thank you, Marge. I hope you're doing good. Almost down through it. We're down past the pole. We're on the final lap here. Chelsea, Albert. Nirad, Yeloft. Dana Nasana again. Thank you again for moderating. Voila, looks like we got through it. Yeah, the biosphere is collapsing, yeah. That's why we're doing the research expeditions. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you got one. I don't really care. Don't bother subscribing. Put me in your bookmarks so you can find me. And the Nuclear Proctologist, put that in your bookmarks. And if they take me down, there'll be a link show up on the Nuclear Proctologist to where I'm going to be streaming from next. Okay, looks like we've done it. Again, thanks everybody for donating and getting us to this level. It's a big deal. We're actually in, yeah, we need a few odds and ends, but we're up and running. What am I supposed to say? Just amazing. Just incredibly humbled. Hugs for everybody. God bless everybody. Have a great night. Great day tomorrow and Saturday. We'll see you Sunday. Unless there's breaking news, I'll be back on Sunday. God bless everybody. Hugs for you and your friends and your families, your loved ones. See everybody soon. Yeah, we're at war. That's a fact. Extra hugs for James. God bless you, buddy. See everybody Sunday. Have a great night, folks.